Welcome to the book of Exodus, chapter 1. This chapter begins the story of how the people of Israel, once welcomed in Egypt, slowly became slaves. It shows us how God's people grew strong, how Pharaoh became afraid, and how God was already working behind the scenes to protect them. At the end of Genesis, Jacob and his family had moved to Egypt because of the famine. Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, had become a great leader in Egypt and saved many lives, including his own family. Now, as Exodus begins, we are reminded of the names of Jacob's 12 sons: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Altogether, Jacob's family who entered Egypt were about 70 in number, not counting Joseph, who was already living there. Joseph eventually died, along with all his brothers and their generation. But the children of Israel did not disappear. Instead, they grew stronger. The Bible says they were fruitful, increased abundantly, multiplied, and became exceedingly mighty. The land was filled with them. This is God keeping his promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that their descendants would become a great nation. But then the story shifts. A new king arose in Egypt, a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph or what he had done for the country. This Pharaoh looked at the Israelites and said to his people, "Look, the children of Israel are more and mightier than we are. If war breaks out, they might join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the land." Instead of seeing them as a blessing, Pharaoh saw them as a threat. So Pharaoh decided to act shrewdly. He placed taskmasters over the Israelites to oppress them with heavy labor. They were forced to build cities for Pharaoh, such as Pithom and Ramses. But the more Pharaoh tried to oppress them, the more they multiplied and spread. The Egyptians began to dread the Israelites. So the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly, making their lives bitter with hard bondage, forcing them to make bricks, to work with mortar, and to do heavy field labor. All their work was harsh and cruel. But Pharaoh was not finished. He wanted to control the Hebrew population in an even more terrible way. He called in 2 Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. Pharaoh commanded them, "When you help the Hebrew women give birth, if the baby is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live." This was a direct attempt to destroy God's plan for Israel. But these 2 women feared God more than they feared Pharaoh. They refused to kill the babies. They let the boys live. When Pharaoh called them back and asked, "Why have you done this? Why did you let the boys live?" the midwives answered, "Because the Hebrew women are strong. They give birth before we can even arrive." God blessed these midwives because they honored him. The people of Israel continued to grow, and God provided families for Shiphrah and Puah. Finally, Pharaoh gave an even harsher command, not just to the midwives, but to all his people. He ordered that every Hebrew baby boy must be thrown into the Nile River, while every girl was allowed to live. This was Pharaoh's desperate attempt to wipe out God's people. Exodus chapter 1 is about a nation that grew strong, a king that grew fearful, and 2 women who chose to obey God rather than man. It is the beginning of Israel's suffering in Egypt, but also the beginning of God's mighty plan to rescue them. This is chapter 1 of Exodus. In the next chapter, we will meet Moses, the man chosen by God to lead his people out of slavery.